And I just want to welcome everybody to this town hall meeting. We have an opportunity to engage ourselves in the direction of our community and our county. And I just want to thank everybody for taking the time out. We're going to have an opportunity to hear what you have to say and to hear the response of our CEO and the plan and future and vision. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our CEO, Burrell Ellis. Thank you.
Thanks. Thanks, Wendell.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. Man, they moved that piano out of here fast. I was going to give Isaiah. Come back here, Isaiah. Does he hear me? I want everybody to see him because he's one of our best and our brightest. Isaiah, come up here and out here and let us recognize you. Isaiah, you're 15? 15 years old, okay? And where are you a student?
I'm here, Stephenson.
At Stephenson High School. Dr. Atkinson, this is one of yours right here. Tom Bowen, this is one of yours right here. Okay, so we're very proud of you, and I just wanted to, a lot of people thought, you know, that was a grown man as well as you play, but I want everybody to know, and one of the stations here, what station are y'all from? Okay, I gave you a big plug right here, CBS Atlanta, okay? I'm gonna find out in a minute why they're here, but I want y'all to do something about Isaiah. Interview him, okay? He's a 15-year-old at Stephenson High School, and he plays beautifully, and he's doing this for us tonight. So thank you. Go get your interview. And I promise I won't talk about what you all want to talk about till you do your interview. Do you want to interview me tonight? You got to interview him, okay? Deal? You got a deal? No, Isaiah. They're going to interview you right now. Right now. I promise I won't do any. Well, he's a student. I won't do anything that you want to hear while you're interviewing him, okay? All right. All right. Help me, okay? If you have to go, Isaiah, you have to go, I understand. But thank you so much, okay? All right. All right. I'm going to make you CEO for the day, and you'll get the interviews, okay? All right. All right. Somebody said that's a good idea. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to our town hall meeting here at Stephenson High School. I think this is I've lost track, but this is number 5 or 6 out of 11 that we've scheduled through March, and then we'll plan and do more. When I campaigned for this office, I promised that the way I campaigned was going to be the way I would govern, and that we would make your priorities the priorities of the county. And we've set those priorities, and I'm here to talk about how we're restoring the county's finances, we're improving public safety. I want to talk about how we're creating jobs and rebuilding our neighborhoods. I want to talk about what we're doing to support our schools, and we're, of course, here at Stephenson High School tonight. And then we're going to talk about some other important activities that we have going on outside. You'll see a big bus. I want to talk about that bus and some other special things. But in order to know what your priorities are, we know that priorities shift and change over time. We've done a number of things. We went through a strategic planning process that took us about 2 years, and we put together a strategic plan. And so as we put together this year's county budget, we wanted to be mindful of your priorities. But it's important that we continue to have face-to-face conversations. And that's what these town hall meetings are really all about. It gives me an opportunity to get out, get in the community, hear what's on the constituents' mind. So when I'm out there talking about the things that are important, I represent you. I'm telling the folks out here that I listen to the citizens of DeKalb County. We've done over 50 of these meetings, or approximately, where are we right now? We might be about 46, 47, but we're somewhere close to 50 since I've been elected. And so we're going to continue. I'm going to break that 50 mark this year if I haven't already broken it, okay? So that's one of my promises to you. So here's what we're going to do tonight. We started maybe about 5 after 7. We'll go to about 8:35 tonight. I'm going to give you a quick overview of some of the progress we've made. Does going to 8:30 work for you all tonight? You all going to be around for the whole thing? Okay, good. We're going to go to about 8:30 tonight. That's DCTV in the back, son. They'll be here. And then we'll, but I'll spend about 10, 15 minutes giving an overview, and then we'll have Q&A for a good bit of the night. And here's what I promise you. I'll be as open and as honest and as candid with you as I possibly can. I've got some staff with me. You see some of our public safety officials, and we have some other county staff here with me also tonight. If I can answer your questions, I will answer the question. The more general the question, the better I will probably be at answering it. If you want to know about why a specific pothole in your street's not been filled, I may have to punt it to one of our staff folks, but we'll do our best to get it answered. If we don't know an answer to your question, we'll take your name and address down. If you don't get a question answered in the public forum, I'll stay around, and I'm asked staff also to stay around as long as we have people. And what time do we have to be out of here, Betty, tonight? I think by 9 we've got to, Dr. Atkinson, do you know? What time we have to be out of your school? Okay, all right, by 9 o'clock, we got to be out of here, okay? But we'll stay for a few minutes and answer any questions, and staff will stay with me. So let me give you a sort of a broad overview of what we've been working on. And I talked about what the priorities that we've been hearing from the people. First and foremost, when I got elected to office, we discovered that the county was spending more than it was bringing in. And we were doing that by dipping into our budgetary reserve, or what we call, that's really our rainy day account. And we were spending more than we were bringing in. Our resources were dwindling. Our revenues were drying up because of the real estate market was not doing as well as it had done previously. Real property values were falling. We get most of our revenue from property taxes. And so we knew that we had to act fast. And so the first thing we did was to slow down our spending. First year I was CEO, we cut about $57 million in our spending. The next year we got that up to $86 million. By year 3, we got that up to $130 million in reduced spending. So we had to cut back on our spending. We had to take some other budgetary measures in order to make sure that we weren't overspending our budget. We had to put some strict controls in place, and obviously we had to adjust ourselves on the revenue side, both by tax and non-tax revenue. We were able to do that through last year. Now, we weren't able to do that in time to prevent the county from being first downgraded in its bond rating, and we had our bond ratings revoked. But because of the actions on our behalf and a majority of the members of the commission, we were able to get the right steps taken care of. Commissioner Larry Johnson and I and several members of our staff went up to New York last year. We met with Moody's and Standard & Poor's. We got the ratings restored for the county. This year, we've got good news. We're ending the year 2012 with a budgetary surplus. We were overspending in years past, but this year we've actually, or last year, 2011 is what I meant, we ended that year with a budgetary surplus. Now, the good news is that we've got to continue to watch our spending, but the good news is that we've got money that we can now set aside in our budgetary reserve. We had a goal of $22 million initially this year. We are now up to, in our recommendation, $30 million in our budgetary reserve. It should equal about 1 month's spending, so that's about $45 million. We were down to single digits, though, a little over a year ago. So the good news is that we now are in a position where we can get that up to $30 million. Now, that's in my recommended budget to the Board of Commissioners. The Board of Commissioners gets the final decision over what that budget's going to look like. But the fiscal condition of the county is good. The other good news of that is that we were able to go out and sell our water and sewer bonds. We're about to do some major upgrades to our water and sewer system, and we were able to go out and sell those bonds. That means we have to borrow the money on the front end. We do the work, but we've got to get good rates. Our bond rating is just like your credit rating at home. So we're trying to get the best ratings that we can get, okay, so that we can get the best return on our dollar. And that's important for our taxpayers. We were able to sell our bonds in approximately 2 hours. So that is phenomenal. That means DeKalb County is still a good investment out there on the market. We're still getting a return, good interest rates on our borrowings. And that all of that is good news for our taxpayers. But we would not have been able to do that had we not acted fast. And for the first time in the history of this county, the lead firm that went out and sold our bonds, the investment firm, was a minority-owned, female-owned firm, and we're very proud of that. They're one of the top 10 ranked firms in terms of bond sales in the United States. So we found someone who was extraordinarily qualified, who went out and did a fantastic job selling those bonds, who also happens to be, that's good news, Neville Anderson, that's right, also happens to be female-owned and minority-owned. And so that's what we're doing on the finance side, but we can't let up. We've got to continue this year by being prudent, by setting that money aside in our reserve funds and watching our spending, and yet delivering the services that our citizens depend upon. And that's how we worked out a budget that we have put together this year. We're improving public safety. Countywide, violent crimes are down 36%, 37%, I believe is the number, Chief, over the last 3 years. Property crimes are down 26% over the last 3 years. We built a new precinct in South DeKalb. We're seeing some significant progress because we've really rehauled our public safety system. We are operating in a more consolidated fashion. We put both police and fire under new management. Chief Bill O'Brien is here, who's our chief of our police department. We have a new chief over the fire department, Chief Eddie O'Brien. Our public safety director, is Chief O'Brien, other Chief O'Brien? I saw you point, okay. Our public safety director, William Miller, is here. He coordinates all of our public safety functions. So we got police and fire and our medical examiners and animal services and other public safety departments all working in a coordinated fashion. And we're seeing some good results. But we know that despite the results countywide, if it's not being manifest in your neighborhood, it really doesn't make a difference. And so we're not going to rest on our laurels. We're happy with the progress we've made, but we're continuing to work and continuing to move forward. We're slated to build a new police precinct this year in North DeKalb and a new police precinct this year in South DeKalb, okay? And so all those, where are we in the bidding process? Is Kelvin Walton here? Is our procurement director here? We'll find out, but all those on the plate for this year. So those are improvements in public safety. We're creating jobs and restoring our neighborhoods. Did y'all see the big bus outside? Okay, that is our mobile career resource center where you can go in and apply for jobs with the computers. We're taking jobs to the people. We're going out in every neighborhood. I mentioned our water and sewer overhaul, and by the way, the Mobile Career Resource Center is really, if you can't remember all that, it's the jobs bus, okay? It's the jobs bus. And we're going out in every neighborhood registering people for the jobs that we're going to be creating by the $1.3 billion in water and sewer upgrades to our system that are going to be beginning in this spring. And so what we'll be doing is, as we do those upgrades, because we've got to have clean drinking water and flushable toilets, basic human necessities, and we got to start to do those things before they break down. But as we dig up the pipes and go into our plants and fix the system, we're going to be training DeKalb County citizens to do the work. And so the vendors that we hire to do the work, one of the requirements will be that they go after DeKalb County citizens first. And we've gone out and done projections through the Carl Vinston Institute at the University of Georgia. They've estimated that we will create 4,700 jobs between now and 2015, and those jobs will be targeted to the DeKalb County residents and to local small business enterprises. And so that's good news. That means the money will be turned around and put back to use to hire people right here in DeKalb County. And I hope you think that's as good as I do. And I hope you've also noticed the streetscape improvements that we're building along Memorial Drive, Panola Road, Buford Highway, 2 new rec centers that we put together, 8 new or improved libraries, 1 more on the way, a number of improvements. A new YMCA at Waywalker Park, not too far from here, is being constructed now. It's a public-private partnership between the YMCA, DeKalb County dollars are building it to the Parks Bond referendum that was passed by the voters, and then the Y will operate it at a reduced rate for DeKalb County citizens. Some more good news, we're putting those dollars back to use in DeKalb County. We have our One DeKalb Lives program where we're working to get vacant homes that were left vacant as a result of foreclosures, and then we're putting them back into market at 50% of rate, at a 50% discounted rate for police officers and firefighters and for teachers. And we call that our One DeKalb Lives program. And so that's more good news about what we're doing to restore the economy here in DeKalb County. And then finally, I mentioned how we're supporting our public school system. Now, Dr. Atkinson, I made reference to her, but I want everybody to know who's our superintendent of school. She's still relatively new. Stand up, Dr. Atkinson, and turn out. Everybody, if you don't know Dr. Atkinson, Dr. Cheryl Atkinson, I want you to know who she is. Tom Bowen, who's a member of the school board, is here with Dr. Atkinson today. Tom, I think most people know you. And let me tell you why they're here. I invited them to be here, not to turn this into a school board town hall meeting, okay? Because we know how important the schools are. I can't effectively do my job unless they're able to effectively do their job. In other words, a community will only rise as high as its public school system, okay? And so we gotta have strong public schools. And we're doing a lot of things working in collaboration. So they're here just to make sure. I want every opportunity for you to know who they are. Every opportunity, because that's how important I believe the schools are. And in my role as CEO, I'm here to support the schools. We formed a higher education advisory committee made up of college presidents who work with me and advise me and on a number of different topics. And one of those topics we've decided to take on firsthand is our school system, how we can work to support our public school system. And so Dr. Atkinson has joined us at those meetings, and I want you to know we're working collaboratively towards that goal. In the summer program, in the summertime, we have a program, a STEM program, which the county has staffed and the school has provided resources for. And we have young people working, teaching them science, technology, engineering, and math. I've got a proposal that you've read about on the table. I've talked about several times. I'm waiting for the Board of Commissioners to pass. It's for a new soapbox derby track in this area because, again, we're going to be teaching science, technology, engineering, and math. The money for that project is set aside in Parks bond money. One of our commissioners, Sharon Barnes-Sutton, is here. Stand up, commissioner, so everybody can see who you are. She represents the area. I want you to know who she is. I need her vote on that project. And I need any other, I don't know if any other commissioners are here. Who else is here? I see, where is he? Commissioner Lee May is sitting in the back. Stand up, Commissioner May, so everybody can see who you are. I need these commissioners' support of projects like that because the money's been set aside, and we're working in collaboration with the school system to do these things, okay? So this is just an overview of some of the things that we're doing to improve the quality of life in the county. Before we go to the Q&A, I also want you to know that we have our One DeKalb Votes initiative. And I usually save this for the end, but I want to say this at the beginning. This is an important election year. It's an important year. Several times we'll be going to the polls this year, the first of which will be March 6th. If you're not already registered, it's too late to register to go to the polls then. That's for the presidential primary, several candidates running on the Republican side, one candidate running on the Democratic side. We have some referendums in some of our cities and special elections, but we also have a Sunday alcohol sales vote for unincorporated DeKalb, and you get to vote whether you live in unincorporated DeKalb or in the cities. So that'll be on March the 6th. And then on July the 31st, we have several local elections, some of the county commissioners. We have a CEO's race. We have other county officials who are running for office. We have an important transportation referendum on July 31st, and let me talk about that for a minute. We'll have an opportunity in a 10-county region, 10 counties in this region, to vote on a region-wide extra penny sales tax to fund transportation projects. And everybody who's lived in DeKalb County, in Metro Atlanta for more than 5 minutes knows we've got a transportation problem. It's hurting us because when we go out to compete for jobs and for industry and economic development with other regions like Charlotte and Seattle and Phoenix and Dallas and the Northeast Corridor and Miami, because we're competing against other regions now. And the one thing that we've heard, we've got an administration in Washington that is working with us here in DeKalb County and in Metro Atlanta. But what they've told us is that we've got to come to them with a coordinated approach because they don't have as many federal dollars as they used to have. There's a big budget battle going on in Washington. We all read about that every day.
And there's not as much federal money as there used to be. And so we've got to compete with those other jurisdictions, and we've got to work in a coordinated fashion to get our fair share of dollars. That means that we've got to be prepared to do our part here locally. And we have an opportunity on July the 31st to do our part. We had 21 elected officials representing 10 counties, 10 county leaders, including DeKalb County, and the city of Atlanta, the mayor of the city of Atlanta, came together, worked for several months on a list of transportation projects. We had to whittle that down to $6.14 billion because that's how much would be generated from the penny sales tax regionally. Actually, a total of $7.22 million, but 6.14 of that $7.22 million will go for transportation projects for the region. And we came together and unanimously adopted a list. Now, that's unheard of. 21 elected officials, urban, small town, rural, big county, Democrat, Republican, all coming together in a consensus fashion to come up with a project list. And for DeKalb County, I want to tell you how important this list is. Of that $6.14 billion, $1.3 billion coming back to DeKalb County, That's 21% coming back here in DeKalb County. And that's $1.3 billion coming in for $800 million that we will raise in penny sales tax. That's 150% return on investment. A great return on investment, but giving our penny, because some will say, well, why should we do that, giving our penny investment in MARTA? Well, it makes good sense that DeKalb County is getting a return on investment. Most of it, almost $1 billion, going towards transit projects in DeKalb County. So DeKalb County has a lot to gain from this referendum. Representative Billy Mitchell just walked in. Representative Mitchell, raise your hand so everybody can see who you are, know who you are. Thank you for being here. And so we have a big vote this summer, July 31st, and it needs to be on everybody's radar screen. And then in November, in August, by the way, if there's any runoffs, we'll have to go to the polls again. And then in November, I think everybody's aware that we've got a presidential race, right? It's 2012. And we can't take anything for granted. We got to get out and vote. Now, we have folks, who is representing us tonight? Which groups? Okay, the 100, okay, tell me the 100 National Council? National Council? What is it, 100 Black Women? The 100 Black Women? Okay, Kim, thank you. And Delta Sigma Theta? And I see that red back there. And who else? And, no, I don't know what that means. Ski-wee. Okay. All right, and Alpha Kappa Alpha. I got deltas at work and AKA at home, so I got to keep it. I got to stay out of trouble. Okay, so those community organizations are in the back. If you're not registered to vote, it's important that you register tonight. You can register tonight and vote, okay? And if you are registered to vote, then get out and tell your neighbors how important. This is an important election year, okay? And nationally, but here in DeKalb County as well, okay? And with that having been said, is there anything else I need to say in my overview? Did I cover everything tonight? Okay, let's open it up for questions. Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir. Yes, young man. You get the first question. All right, how are we doing questions tonight? We have mics, or I'll hand you my mic. You get the first question. All right. Yes, sir.
I have one question. It's about the Green Co.
Green Co.
Yeah, and I just want you to understand that I'm against it 100%, and I just want to know what your position is.
Okay. All right. The Green Co. And first of all, let me say this is an item that falls under the jurisdiction of the Board of Commissioners and not under the jurisdiction. I know you want to know where I stand, and I appreciate the question, but I got to give everybody the background. That's the composting site that is being planned to be located at one of our quarry sites, being proposed by, I guess, the private sector people who want to put it together. It's a special land use permit that is being brought before the Board of Commissioners. The CEO does not have jurisdiction over those matters. Obviously, I'm very concerned about two things: the environmental health of this county, and we don't have yet the environmental reports. And, I'm a citizen like you, and I'm gonna tell you the two things. I don't get a vote on this, but I tell you what I would be concerned about. Number one, the environmental health of the county. I want to make sure that there's nothing being done that's going to detract environmentally, either in air quality or solid waste or in any other way, on the health of the citizens of this county. Okay, and as a citizen, I care about that. And those reports have not been brought in. The other thing as CEO I care about is listening to the will of the people. The recommendation from staff right now, because we have a planning department that reviews these things, is that the Board of Commissioners not act yet, that they defer it until we have all the environmental reports. And that gives it an opportunity to be aired before the people. So what I would encourage you to do, number one, is to make sure your concerns are heard before the board so that they can vote, hopefully, in accordance with your concerns. That's what you would hope and pray that they would do. I'll continue to listen, and that's why I'm here, because I want to hear from you and know what your concerns are and what your reservations are. I'm going to wait until I get the environmental report, and at the end of the day, I don't have any problem with letting you know where I stand, but I don't get a vote to decide in this one. Yes, sir.
I'm from Lithonia, and we have came before the commissioners regarding this biomass plant. We have even went around through our neighborhoods and gotten the majority, at least 95% of the people who stay in Lithonia was totally against this. We met with Mr. Mays on several occasions where he did not give us his direct opinion upon this. We came over to the Alu facility when you voted on it. It has been voted on.
Yeah, when they voted on it. And you're
Right.
talking about the biomass,
Right.
not the green cone. Okay.
And it was voted in order to put this in our neighborhood. But one of the things that I want to bring to everyone's attention is that our neighborhood is zoned for dumping. If you go over to the DeKalb County, or go to your zoning, and look at your neighborhood, that's what it is zoned for. It is zoned for, they even have radiation on there. They even have basically any type of fertilizer. Anything that is negative is zoned for our area. So I asked this. I was at a church up by Panola Road, and when I went to swing through there, I seen a liquor store across the street from the church. And I was wondering as to why they are combined there, because from my understanding, it's against the law. So when I went over to the DeKalb County, they said that the church came in, and if the liquor store ever leave, then you can't put another liquor store there. My question is that why we can't get our area rezoned from petroleum storage being stored in our neighborhoods, fertilizer being stored in our neighborhood, this biomass being put in our neighborhood. I was also at a meeting last week where they said the commissioners was going over this rezoning. And I'm wondering, why is it that the commissioners, and we done been to them now, why is it that they're not listening to the people and going back and trying to rezone this area for us to have a better way of life in our neighborhoods?
Yeah. Let me answer this. You asked sort of a two-part question. One about why the community is zoned the way it's zoned. And then you asked the second question about why the commissioners aren't listening to the will of the people. Let me answer the question first about the zoning of the property, and I believe Andrew Baker is here from the Planning and Department of Planning and Sustainability, and I'll let him add anything from a technical perspective. You might just want to come up here that I leave out. But the county, over the history of time, gets zoned. In other words, there's certain uses that can be done in certain areas. And then as a result of that, there's a comprehensive land use map that is drawn up. And over time, that can be changed. The uses of property or the zoning and land use can be changed. But in order to get it changed, you have to go before the Board of Commissioners. Now understand that the CEO has executive powers over the county in almost every area. But there is one area that the CEO does not get to have a weigh-in on. I can express an opinion as a private citizen. There's no question. But when decisions about zoning and land use are made, even back in the days when the CEO used to chair the commission meetings, you remember the CEO had to step down when the zoning and land use decisions were made. So I don't get a weigh-in at all. I can't even break a tie. I can break a tie on other matters that come before the commission, but I cannot break a tie on a zoning and land use matter, and I don't even believe I can issue a veto on a zoning issue. So those zoning decisions, and when you ask why property is zoned the way it is, it may be that it was zoned at some time years ago when maybe the area was mostly industrial, and it's not largely, an area is not largely industrial anymore. And the only way it can get changed is when the owner of a particular piece of land, or somebody with that owner's permission, then takes it before the Board of Commissioners. In other words, my neighbor can't go out and rezone my property, but if I own property, I can make an application to the Board of Commissioners to ask for the property to be rezoned. Now, I was on the Board of Commissioners for 8 years, and two things are supposed to happen. Number one, they're supposed to look at the laws to determine whether a rezoning is proper. And number two, they're supposed to listen to their constituents. And the questions that you'll need to ask, these will be the independent decisions you'll have to make, because I don't want to speak for why the commissioners make the decisions they make. They'll have to answer those on their own, and this is not the right forum to do that. But the questions I think you are going to have to ask of the commissioners who you're making reference to is, why did you vote the way you did? And if you don't like the way they voted, I mean, all of us, our contracts come up for renewal, every 4 years, all of us, the CEO and the Board of Commissioners. So I think those are legitimate questions, and that's a legitimate conversation you'll need to have with them. And in terms of the zoning process, was there anything that you wanted to add that?
Is this on? Yeah, testing. Only that in some situations, communities actually were developed or development occurred prior to zoning being put in place. So that's why you can have, for instance, the liquor store there and then the church coming in after the fact. If the church was there first, there are distance requirements for liquor stores going in proximity to schools, churches, and so forth. So moving forward, we do have those laws in place. However, in terms of your specific neighborhood, and you're talking about the zoning is for industrial, I think one of the things we can do is, if you get with me, we can talk about and identify the boundaries of your neighborhood, then we can sit down with your commissioner and we can initiate a zoning plan or a plan for your particular area that changes the residential area back to residential zoning, and try to look at those areas that may be industrial or commercial. So feel free to get with me before you leave, and we can have a conversation about plans or things we can do for you.
All right, I also want to recognize Dr. Spears, who's also on the board of, Dr. Speaks, I'm sorry, Pam Speaks is here. Dr. Speaks, stand up so everybody can see you. Thank you, my apologies. Tess.
Good evening, Mr. CEO. I want to thank you for everything you've been doing for the county. And I also want to thank Representative Mitchell for putting forward the legislation regarding incorporating DeKalb County. From my understanding, I think it's a good thing, but I'm not sure how it would affect the structure of the government, and I'm not sure of all of the benefits to the county, but I'm sure there are many, and I'd like for you to discuss some of those. Yeah,
thanks, Tess. The overarching issue, and I want to thank Representative Mitchell too, you can stay here because you understand your legislation best, but Billy and I have discussed this a good bit. And we've got an issue in DeKalb County with the incorporation of these select areas within the county, because what they're doing is they're pitting not only the cities against the county, but they're also pitting cities against cities and people against people and neighbors against neighbors, because what people are doing is they're taking residential areas and they're drawing in some of the choicest commercial areas around arbitrary boundaries, and they're using those commercial areas to subsidize the residential areas to support the creation of cities. In other words, they're trying to make an argument that by creating a city, we can lower your taxes and keep you from having to pay for services of residents in other areas of the county. And they're doing that by taking away the commercial tax base and drawing them into the areas of the city. And as a result of that, we're having what I call a rush to the State House. The people who want to create a city are trying to rush ahead of people who already have cities who want to annex those areas and ahead of the county. In other words, everybody is doing a land grab on commercial property in order to create these cities. It's just bad public policy, and we need better. We need better because we need policies that aren't divisive, but policies that bring people together. When we've talked about One DeKalb Lives and One DeKalb Works and One DeKalb Votes and One DeKalb Volunteers and all of our One DeKalb initiatives, we're not just talking about programs, but we're talking about how to bring people together and live in a way that is united. And so we've called upon our state legislators, the leaders in the General Assembly, to put a moratorium or hold on the creation of these cities until we can have better policies. Now, I think what Representative Mitchell has done is essentially just that. What he is saying is that, okay, if we're going to go about this process of creating cities, let's create a city out of unincorporated DeKalb County. And that does two things. Number one, it stops there being any other unincorporated commercial areas to cherry pick and draw into these city boundaries. But even more significantly, we did a study with the Carl Vinson Institute in 2006. So it's about 6 years old now, and it needs to be redone. But what we determined is that at that time, there's about $30 million a year in additional revenue from franchise fees that this newly created city of DeKalb would have access to if unincorporated DeKalb became a city. And so really what I think we need, and so Billy, if I'm putting words in your mouth, you can come to the mic and correct me, but I think really, because we talk, I understand what he is saying is the same thing I'm saying. Let's put the brakes on, and this is one of the ways to put the brakes on. And it's time for folks to have some common sense, rational conversations about how we're going to allow cities to be created and at the same time not hurt people who live in the unincorporated counties. The other fundamental part of this is the whole dilution of votes. Because what happens is that the people who live in these arbitrarily created cities get to vote on cityhood, but other people who are impacted by these cities, and I think most of you all who live in this part of the county who are here tonight live in an unincorporated DeKalb. So our tax base is going to be impacted. It was impacted at about $18 million a year less revenue as a result of the creation of the city of Dunwoody. If this new city, Brookhaven, Ashford, whatever they want to call it, is created, it'll be about another $23 to $25 million hit per year on the county budget. That means in order to deliver basically the same services, because we've still got, some people say we can roll back our costs, but some costs are fixed. We still got to run, we still got to run all these elections this year. We still got to run the court system. We still got to run the jail. We still got to run the hospital, the public hospital. So there's some things that only county governments support, that city governments don't support. And we'll probably still be providing public safety, if not police, fire for this new city, and some of the utilities. There's some things that only counties deliver, however. And so we've just got to have better policy, and we need a better process. And so what I would ask you to do is reach out to your legislators and tell them, wait, we need to put the brakes on. And that doesn't just mean the representatives who represent you here in this part of the county. For the most part, I think they get it. But it's all, everybody from the governor to the speaker to the lieutenant governor on down needs to hear the voice of the people and understand that there's a more rational approach. And then we may just have to get out and campaign this summer over this whole city of Dunwoody, understanding that if you live in this part of the county, you won't get to vote, but you will have a voice, okay? So thank you, Tess. Is anybody, I'll give you the next question. Yes, ma'am, I'll just bounce around.
I'm Elfrida Ellis, and I live in Water's Edge. We are
Ellis?
Ellison.
Ellison, okay.
We are the edge of DeKalb County and Gwinnett. It appears as though our tax dollars are not being spent in our area. The roads are in bad condition. We've got trees falling. We have, and I'm part of the Image Committee, and we are responsible for keeping Rockbridge Road and North Deshong clean. But we've got all these businesses that are opening up and leaving their garbage. What is being done to make them clean the area, number one? Number two, what is the county doing in order to improve our roadway system? We've got a bridge that's been inundated from the storm of '09, and this is 12. We're not improving this area, and it seems as though we are the stepchildren of DeKalb County, and we're concerned citizens. Our roads are terrible in Water's Edge, and I'm quite sure other roads are just as bad. And we write to the commissioners, we write to you, and we seem to get no response. Now, last year, the weeds were so tall on North Deshong Road that I think they didn't cut until October. Our tax dollars are just as important as anyone else's, and we'd like to know what percentage of our tax dollar is being put back into our community.
First of all, let me assure you that you're not the stepchildren of DeKalb County. And I'm going to ask Ted Reinhardt, who's our Deputy CEO over Infrastructure, to come up. He may be able to talk about the bridge. My staff and I try to either personally respond or make sure that there's a departmental response to every email or letter that comes into our office. And I mean, we spend hours at a time doing those. And so if I've overlooked your letter, I'm a little surprised, but occasionally that happens. So, and we get hundreds a week. So I can't tell you I did or I didn't at this point. But what I can do is also get some of those specific areas that you've outlined. We also have a code compliance. I don't know if anybody's here from code compliance, and we not only do sweeps, but we have a week in October of every year, I believe it is, where we go out and we work with volunteer organizations and people who have traffic violations, and we put them to work off some of those violations and clean up our areas. I put together a code compliance task force. We have some members of the code compliance task force here today. We are now putting together a neighborhood, what are we calling it? Our neighborhood volunteers, our neighborhood ambassadors, who, from, I believe you said Water's Edge, Ms. Ellison? Yes. We can get some neighborhood ambassadors from Water's Edge who can go out, because there's no question, we've seen our tax digest fall by $5 billion over the last 3 years. And I've talked about the $130 million we've had to cut. About 24% of the county's budget on the revenue side has been reduced. That does have an impact on service delivery. But generally, we've been able to do a good job.
One other question. We do have a large population in our prison. And I see Gwinnett County utilizes all of theirs to clean their roads. Is there a problem with us doing the same?
Yeah, and I'm going to let our public safety director, there's some issue about using prisoners, but we're using people, do you know the answer? Okay, Ted said he can answer. We use people who have some traffic violations to clean up, but I know this has come up before. So can you answer that in the question she had about the bridge?
Yes, sir. We've talked with the sheriff many times. His position, can't argue with it, is that the nature of his prison population is generally people who are awaiting sentencing or are awaiting having been sentenced, being sent to state prison, and are not by nature a group that would be cost effective to have a armed guard and other kind of control on the streets. But we do, as the CEO mentioned, get community service workers. They have been required to do that, maybe as part of a misdemeanor offense, and we get several crews each day of community service workers. There's over 2,000 miles of county roads. So our challenge is, even if we have 4 or 5 crews out a day, they can only get throughout the county so fast. Same thing with road condition. Out of those 2,200 miles of roads, 400 miles warrant immediate resurfacing. And we get funding each year between the state and the county sufficient to do about 40 miles. So you can see if you're doing 40 miles a year, you already have 400 miles need work. And out of those 2,000 miles, several miles are deteriorating each year. We continue to fall further and further behind, but there's lots of competitions for funding. I think what I would like to do is, since I think you're just sitting right down here near me, is let me get some more specifics on the exact addresses of the bridge and other things, and we'll have Roads and Drainage talk with you, and I'll have Sanitation check whether North Deshaun is already on one of their mowing routes or whether that's one they would look at to try to expand their routes.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Ellison. School Board Member Donna Etler has also joined us. Donna, stand up so everybody can see you. Okay, thank you. I'm bouncing to the mics now and then I'll try to get in the middle, but I got a lot of people at the mics who've been patiently standing. So yes, ma'am, you get the next question.
Hi, Mr. CEO.
Hi.
Hi. As you're well aware, we have extreme pet overpopulation in DeKalb County. We also have a severe shortfall in services to handle the surplus animals in this county. We have a shelter that's 40 years plus old that is inadequate for handling the surplus of animals that we have in this county. We don't have enough officers in the field. We're down to about 8 officers from double that 2 years ago, and the funding's not been provided to refill those positions. So my question to you is, why has your administration not done anything to control the pet population? And in turn, why your administration hasn't done anything to provide adequate services to handle the surplus of unwanted pets and abused pets in this county? I'm here tonight because your slogan for these meetings is that you're going to make my priority DeKalb's priority. This is my #1 only priority is animal services. I hope you'll please address it. Yeah. Thank you.
And I will, and I'll tell you what our administration has done and is doing. We're getting, obviously, a number of emails and letters. I was mentioning, Ms. Ellison, how we get hundreds a week, and a number of them have been coming in later about animal services. So there's a very active and ongoing campaign related to it, and so we're very aware of it. We're responding to each and every email and letter that we receive. When I first became CEO, I did a tour of the animal services. The conditions are deplorable and unacceptable, and I'm very aware of that. I also am aware that we have a high rate of animals being euthanized, and that's also unacceptable. We put together an animal services task force, a group of citizens. We asked them to begin to work with us to look at the problems, and I mentioned the coordinated approach. We took animal services out from under policing because, quite honestly, it was being used not under my current chief, but by a previous guy who ran that department. It was just being used as a place to punish police officers and who didn't really have the passion or the motivation to do the job. They weren't being encouraged to do the job. So a combination of taking it out from under policing, putting it as a separate department under public safety, leaving under public safety, creating the Animal Services Task Force. They came back and have provided us with a report outlining what the issues are. We then come back in our budget this year, and we're recommending the restoration of 10 positions that were previously defunded from that department. And bear in mind now that I get to make a budget recommendation, but the final budget's adopted by the Board of Commissioners, and 2 of them are here tonight. So, make sure that, you understand that with a government that has checks and balances and separation of powers, I'll make the executive recommendation, and then I'll make sure it gets executed, but that the commissioners will then have to approve those funding requests that we put into the budget. The director, along with members of the task force, are also working to identify some storefront space so that we can begin adoptions from a better facility. But we do have adoptions going on right now. Okay, we started on Valentine's Day, and how long did they go on? Through the 18th of March?
5 days.
Oh, it's over now. Okay, all right. So we had an adoption going on now. And then we're waiting on an opinion from our law department that, if approved, will allow us to go out to present a plan again to the Board of Commissioners that will allow us to go out and borrow money for some significant upgrades to our existing facility. So that's the plan. And that plan hinges on the actual budget that gets adopted next week by the Board of Commissioners. So make sure that I'm hearing you, and I know you're writing them and me because I see who the emails are going to. But make sure I want you to be aware that there are some funding requests, and without the funds, we simply can't do the upgrades. So, and the upgrades are necessary. So make sure you're talking to the commissioners and letting them know. And thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Commissioner Ellis, my name is Harold Hardy. I live in Hidden Hills, and I know that we have a lot of things that we're concerned about as far as the infrastructure systems in DeKalb County is concerned about. But one of the main things that I'm really concerned about is our youth. This summer is going in the jobs. Is there any type of program that is available that we can use the school systems, the facilities this summer for training for our youth and for activities for our youth for this summer? We need to have them to have some activities for them to train them to build up their esteem and to change the conditions in our community concerning our youth.
Yeah. Thank you for that. I really appreciate that, Mr. Hardy. And we got our folks from Workforce Development, so I'm going to let them come up. But let me tell you, sort of remind you, reiterate some of what I've already said. One, we've got our jobs bus outside. And we're working on not only taking that to the town hall meetings, but also getting that to the schools, because it's important that we get our young people in a position where they can actually go out and look for jobs. I talked about our jobs program. Some of those won't be for, young folks. They may be more trained in higher end jobs, and we have a number of summer programs. And then, of course, activities. I mentioned the building of the YMCA, the 2 new rec centers that we've opened in the last year in the county so that we can keep our young people active in the summer. The soapbox derby track, which is just sitting on the Board of Commissioners' desk. You need to ask them why that doesn't move forward, because we paid the money to acquire the land and to do the design work. And some commissioners are saying they need a business plan. That's foolishness. They didn't need a business plan to do other things we did in this county. Why are we asking for a business plan for young people? So you might want to ask them why, good programs like that are just sitting around and the funding's available. And you got a couple commissioners here tonight. So, she's going to talk about the workforce development. You want to say that on the mic? Can you say on the mic so I can hear what you're saying?
Good evening, everybody. My name is Sandy. Oops. I'm from DeKalb Workforce Development. We have a summer youth employment work experience program where we assist youth anywhere from the ages of 14 to 21. And we work with several county departments as well as private sector industries as well to assign these youth and give them a meaningful work experience program. So certainly I'll take your information and get back to you and see how we can assist you.
How many youth can you assist?
Depending upon the funds that we have available, on an average every year, we try to serve at least 250 to 300. However, I think probably a year ago when we received stimulus funds, we were able to assist about 1,100 youth. So certainly if I get your information, we'll see if we can be.
We may not get that money this year, okay? So, yeah, I don't want to. Okay. We did very good with the stimulus funds from the Obama administration that was available. We got about $175 million in stimulus funds in my first year in office, but that was a one-time shot, so we're not getting that every year. I mean, there's just no more stimulus funding going out.
Is there anything that the school board and the county can work together to put together to use our facilities this summer?
Yeah, I talked about the program that we've done to STEM, and Dr. Atkinson, if there's anything you want to add, you can feel free to, but one of the things that we've done is we've had programs at the high schools where county staff actually taught the young people. One year they created their own form of government. They created a government just like the DeKalb counties. They elected a CEO and they elected Board of Commissioners, and they had a governing structure, and then they did some green and sustainability. They did a community garden and another number of other programs, and so they really learned a lot, but that was a result of the school system making its facility available and the county making staff available, and we were able to work with young people. So we do have a number of programs. We have our Police Athletic League Plus, what we call PAL Plus, where we have actually, our public safety officers, our police officers working directly with our young people throughout the year, and had a football game not too long ago. Then basketball? Okay, they're in the playoffs, and so we've got some good collaborative programs going on. Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Hardy. Yes, ma'am.
Hello, my name is Sue Couts, taxpayer, DeKalb County.
Thank you.
I wanted to make a couple points and ask you a question. My number one priority is also animal services, and there's been the recent budget cut by 12% to that, or the proposed 12%. And I know that you created the task force, but it just doesn't make any sense to me why you would create the task force only to turn around and then recommend a 12% reduction in the budget for animal services, which is in direct contradiction to the formation of the task force. That's one point.
Joe here? Joe here? Joe? No, Joe got me. Okay.
But, and then that's one point. Another point, I guess there was an amended budget last week, and that the county ended up with 12 million more than projected. So, I mean, I want to know if some of that money can go to animal services?
It is, but let me correct some of the things. I want you to get your question out, but some of the factual background you're giving is not exactly correct. So I want to make sure you get your question out, but I'm gonna have to correct some of the facts. Okay.
And I mean, this problem isn't new. This has been going on for decades. And you said that you toured the facility yourself, and it's absolutely deplorable. So I can't believe that this goes on and nothing is being done about it. And there's smaller steps that you can do besides the money that I'll talk about in a second also. But another just little piece of information here is that Forsyth County commissioners on Thursday authorized staff to move forward on an animal shelter project there, which voters approved in the recent 1-cent sales tax referendum. I mean, there's so much more that can be done. I mean, there's a lot of excuses why things aren't being done, and there's been promises made. The last CEO said there was going to be a new shelter, and this is a problem that's gone on for far too long. And take the money out of it. There's other things that you could do, like the shelter it's open from Tuesday to Saturday, from 9 to 5. That's most people are working then. Who on earth can go there and look at what dogs are adoptable? Why isn't it open on Saturday and Sunday and one evening a week? You could certainly juggle the hours for people to even go there.
I'm going to let the public safety director speak to some of that, but I want to talk about the budget part. And I've talked about what we're doing, and I just want to remind you, we've got a recommended budget that goes before the Board of Commissioners. The budget process is that we, by law, have to introduce that budget on December the 15th. The books don't close until December the 31st of the year. So every year, once we get into the new year, we then, after we close the books, we make some adjustments to that budget and some further recommendations. And one of those recommendations is to fund now up to 10 positions in that department. What we did with all of our departments is to keep them at 2011 levels in order to budget the budget. Now, to balance the budget. Some commissioners are talking about cutting the budget even further. We're not recommending to cut the budget even further. We're trying to hold at 2011 levels, and even with 2011 levels for many departments, there are additional costs such as health care costs and the cost of funding holidays, which we think is only fair and important for our employees. So we have to fund the elections this year. That's a big add-on. Again, I think we're taking a very reasonable approach to a dire situation. We know we've got a bad problem. We first of all turned it over to a group of citizens who cared very much about this issue and said, give us your thoughts about how you would fix it. They gave us some good ideas, and then we're going to the implementation phase, but let's not fool ourselves. Implementation means you've either got to pay people to do things, or you got to, build buildings or fix buildings, or it costs money to implement. And so we're asking the board to approve more money in this budget. And your voices, continue to let your voices be heard, because if that money is approved, I can do a good bit more than I can do if the money's not approved, okay? If the money's not approved, and there's no tax increase in this budget, so there's no reason not to approve it unless they want to just, some commissioners are saying, we think the market may do worse than what's projected, but that's not what we're seeing, and we've put together a conservative budget. The $12 million you're referring to is not more than what we projected. It's more than what we budgeted, because we budget, number one, conservatively, and number two, because of the stringent controls we put in place, we ended last year in a surplus. Now compare that with other years when we've ended with a deficit because of the overspending. So we've got our spending in control, we've got our bond rating back and strong, we were able to go out and borrow money. We're looking to borrow more money so we can do the animal services upgrade. We've got money in the budget without raising taxes, so we can put more resources into animal services. And then we're looking at some of those avenues, such as finding storefront that won't cost so much money. So I think we're in light of the big hit, my chief appraiser is sitting right here in front of you, and in light of the big hit on our tax digest, $5 billion over the last 3 years, I think we're addressing the problem in a very reasoned way. But I know it's very seriously. It's at the forefront of my agenda. That's why it's in my budget. But, I'm not the emperor. I'm the CEO. And like any other executive, I'm going to make the recommendation and I'm going to advocate on your behalf. But the Board of Commissioners is going to have to make the final decision on the budget, okay? And, Director Miller, do you want to add anything?
You pretty much answered everything. Again, we did find that we had a budget surplus that we didn't know we were going to have, and that's why the CEO recommended the filling of those 10 positions. So in his recommended amended budget, those 10 positions have been requested. As far as opening on different hours and on the weekends, again, it requires staff and it requires funding. We are reaching out to volunteers. I've spoken with the lady that runs the drug court, and she has agreed to give us some community service workers to help us with staffing, but even those people have to be supervised by an actual county employee. So it all comes down to funding and staffing, and we're trying to do everything we can to improve those conditions. Yes.
Thank you.